game is over.
With a shot blocked. Eberle in front for Schwartz. They score! Hey, hey! What do you say?
Ground early. Now the cross out to Nor. What a save by Fry!
What's up, Seattle sports fans? We are back for another episode of the Seattle Sports Scene. Episode 2. Super excited to get talking about all that Seattle sports with you guys. Seahawks, Mariners, Kraken, Sounders, and everyone else in there. Gonna pass the mic over here to Seattle Sports Season. Gonna get us started. What's going on, man?
Dude, it's going well, and what a week we saw from the Kraken last week. Since we released the last episode, the Kraken have played only 2 games since we released after the Nashville game on Tuesday night, but they started off a homestand, a 5-game homestand, with a nice 6-4 win against the Flyers in a pretty entertaining game. And then on Saturday, in overtime, they got the win over the undefeated Calgary Flames 2-1 off of what was a little bit of a lucky goal. But the Kraken did play well that game. They honestly, both teams didn't really have a lot of shots on goal that game. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, the Calgary Flames only had 22 shots on goal, and we only had 23. It was a pretty slow game, but when you're playing a team that was as hot as Calgary, that's a pretty good strategy to take. Just minimize opportunities for both teams and hope that you get the lucky puck bounce at the end of the day. And the Kraken got exactly that to come away with a 2-1 victory. What have you seen from the Kraken in the last week that makes you excited?
Oh, man. Well, the Kraken are just playing a completely different game from last season. It's been so fun to watch. And you talk about, as you said, the Calgary Flames being a hot team currently. Not only are they a hot team right now, they were undefeated before that game. The Kraken take them down. The Kraken have never beat them at home in Climate Pledge Arena. That was the first time that we had beaten them at home. And our record all time against them is not good. So that was an incredible win against what I think is probably one of the Kraken's biggest rivals. I have a hard time calling it the Canucks. You could say the Golden Knights, perhaps, since it just feels like we always have some bad blood at them. Possibly the Oilers, but man, that was such a good win. Hard fought to come back and win after being down 1-0. The overtime was incredible. Montour getting a turnover and passing it over to Eberle after a missed shot, and man, that arena was just electric. So good to see such an awesome win early on in the season. So, but no, like I said, the play style of the Kraken is looking much better from last year. The offensive scheme is starting to click everywhere, all over the ice. The rhythm's fast, it's well executed, and it's looking like some other strong teams that have currently some strong offenses. Last year, the Kraken felt like they were playing a different strategy that other teams didn't, but it was not in a good way. It wasn't we're playing differently than everyone else, we look better. It was confusing, and it was hard to figure out, and myself and a lot of other people who cover the Kraken spent so much time talking about we can't figure out what the plan is. This year it's been so nice because Dan Biles has been so transparent with the plan and so transparent with what players are being used where, that it's been easier to see, okay, this is his plan. This is what we're going to do. Last year it was so hard to see what the plan was with Dave Haxtell. So super grateful for Coach Bilesma for being able to be open about that, because this isn't a sport like the NFL where you have to hide your plan. There's only 3 or 4 ways you can execute an offense: a forecheck, a back check, a defense, goaltending. There's not very many, and people are going to find out right away when they see how you're running it. So it's almost like if you ever played Retro Bowl, not Retro Bowl, Tecmo Bowl on the NES. There's only like 4 plays you can run on there. That's how hockey works. There's only 4 plays that you can really run. It's just a matter of, are you going to be able to counter that play with your own, the setup with your own? Anyway, so they've looked a lot better this year. The team last year looked like they were just getting through the season with the bare minimum, and seeing them play like this, even in a loss, it's fun hockey. The players look like they're enjoying it. The Stars game obviously doesn't feel like a good loss, but the players finished that game feeling better than they did before, and that was a good sign for me. And then you go on and win 3 games in a row, so that definitely was a good sign after that loss. So on top of the offense, looking great. Few shout outs to some players. Jamie Alexiak, I said this last episode, just looks incredible. He's playing so much better, positioning, shot blocking. Everything is looking great. I think that has something to do with him playing with Brandon Montour. He's even mentioned it a few times in his post-game pressers and just during the practice sound that the Kraken do. He talks a lot about adapting to Monty's play style, but he definitely can see that Monty is elevating the way he plays and the way that he handles his defense, and they complement each other because Montour is a very offensive defensive end, and Alexiak is a very stay-at-home, solid defense, which is why I was surprised the first few games he had so many shots on goal. But they complement each other well. It's been a fun pairing to look at and see. Quick shout out to Josh Mahura, who played an incredible game for stepping in. His second game as a Kraken, played incredible. Took a penalty, but played solid, really just all game long. Lots of praise for him for stepping in, playing solid. It was really good to see somebody who doesn't know the system too well. But yeah, that was exciting to see. And then Yanni Gord talked during this week about his line with Ty Cartier and Brandon Tanev and some of the faster play that they're playing. As everyone who's a Kraken fan knows, Cartier and Tanev are some of the fastest skaters on the team. They are the ones who are going to rough up the other team. They're going to cause some scrums, some fights. And Yanni Gord is, as we know, the pepper pot, same kind of player. They complement each other well with the kind of aggressive play style they have, and they've been one of the most productive lines. I think you've got a quote on what Yanni was saying in the practice sound about that line.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool quote. I really liked it. He said, "You can push on the forecheck and it creates battles. In the last few games, I thought we played better than the first couple. I thought just because we were closer to one another, we create battles, but quickly the second guys come in right there, digging the puck out, finding a play, and then kind of keeping things moving. So I thought we looked a little faster the last 3 games. We just got to continue growing our game for the 3 of us." I think that's really encouraging to see that they're starting to get comfortable in the lines that they've been playing with here for the first few games of the season. And I hope that they continue to just be able to work together and to be able to get more comfortable playing with each other, because these are some of these lines are new. And I think that they've been really working out well for the Kraken so far through this point in the season.
Yeah, it's been great. It's arguably been one of the most fun lines to watch, and it's the only line that's been consistent all season long. It hasn't been switched around barely at all. So, like I just said, it's been fun to watch that line going through and playing together. But yeah, he's really just mentioning about it's being able to develop plays off of the scrums and off of the plays and the boards that we've seen. The Kraken have done a great job with that. Right off of some passes from the boards, getting some really good opportunities. So that's great to see that line produce that and really set up the first and second line in terms of like kind of roughing up the opposing lines. It's been great to see the first and second lines for the Kraken getting chances because the fourth line has set them up, has gotten the puck in deep, is holding the puck in deep, get that line change going. And then the defense, I use this word a lot, but the defense is complementing the offense so well this season. It's so great to see. So that's been super excited to see. Going through some of the team leaders for the stats, our very own Captain Jordan Eberle is leading with goals at 5 goals to start the season. Jordan Eberle is hot. As a hot start to the season, which I love seeing. In terms of points, Jared McCann's leading with 8 points. He's got 3 goals and 5 assists, which also respectively puts him at the leader for assists with 5. Canner is still putting in that offensive work. Never had a doubt that he would start off cold in assists and goals. He always puts in the effort, starts out hot. No change from last week. The Pepperbot himself, Yanni Gord, is leading in penalty minutes. He's got 12 now. He had 7 at the time of recording of this last episode. Jared McCann's got the plus-minus lead now with +5. Alexiak still at +4, so he's second on the team with that. And Joey Decord has not moved from goaltender leader. He's got a 2.60 goals allowed average, a 914 save percentage. He's 3-0-0 and has a positive 1.4 GSAX. A reminder from last week, for those of you who may not have catch the episode, the GSAX is goals. It's goals allowed again, or excuse me, goals saved above expectation. And just a quick, brief rundown. If after the game, based off of the kind of shots that he had taken at him, Joey, speed, angle, location, if the math says he's supposed to let in 3 goals that game and he only lets in 2, he gets a +1 on his GSAX. It's a great way, and if he lets in 4, he gets -1. It's a great way to see how your goaltenders are playing in terms of what are they overperforming, are they underperforming. So really great to see that. Kind of a quick wrap up for the Kraken there. I don't have too much else to talk about so far. I thought the team has looked great. They've played super well. Everyone seems happy. Everyone seems excited. Just an epic win against the Flames. That game was amazing. I was in here watching it and just was jumping up and down and screaming when Eberle got that goal. Super happy for him. And then Joey taking the tumble on the pile, coming in on the celly was really funny to see. He had a little case of the zoomies there, to quote him directly. So this team looks special. At the time of this recording on Tuesday, they're playing right now against the Avs. I've got that game up next to me, and we're buzzing right now. Up in shots, 12-4. The Avalanche look lost. Kraken have put nonstop pressure, and we've hit the post.
Dude, you look so lost.
We've hit the post like 2 times. Yanni Gord had a shot. I'm kidding. I kid you not. Like 10 seconds in, and he hit the post on a wide open net. But the Avs are struggling to find their ground. They are a team, though, this season, even though they're only 2-4, that has been known to get it together in the end of games, near the ending of games. So I'm curious to see how the Kraken deal with that, because I know that last season we were known for playing incredible in the first, pretty well in the second, and then crumbling in the third. And it seems like it's been the opposite this year, which makes sense. You got a coach in Dan Bilesma coaching the Firebirds last year, and they were a team that would go down by a lot, and then they'd come back in the second, late in the second, and in the third. Super excited to see how they do tonight against a team that we definitely dislike after our playoff battle with them. I've been talking about the Kraken for a while. What are some of your thoughts on the team so far?
Yeah, Yanni Gord continues to average a minor penalty every game, which is kind of hilarious. It's with 12 minutes through the first 6 games, which I expect nothing less. For that, again, with that goalie stat, similar to expected batting average in baseball, for those of you guys that listen to us that are Mariners fan, that one being based off of like quality of contact, launch angle, a very similar stat just to measure how well your goalie's playing. So, yeah, I think the Kraken, they've looked great so far. This game, I also have it pulled up on my computer, looking over it, glancing over. They look fantastic. They're flying around the ice. Another really good shot there just a minute ago. I didn't catch who that was by, but great save by Gorgiev. Gorgiev's playing goal today for the Avalanche.
I think it's Annunen, actually.
It's Annunen?
Yeah, Annunen's playing today. He's been
arguably
more solid than Gorgiev.
Oh. Well, it was a great save to his weak side right there, but I think the Kraken, hopefully they can win this game and continue momentum. They'll play 2 more games on this homestand to finish it out against the Jets and the Hurricanes, both of which are going to be really tough games. So hopefully we can get some points tonight and then be able to just compete with some of the best teams in the league on Thursday night and then Saturday night, respectfully. So great stuff so far from the Kraken to open the season. Just switching lenses here a bit, going to the Seahawks game, and the Seahawks did exactly what we needed them to do this week. After just kind of being dejected and playing 3 games in 11 days, a little bit of unluckiness there for the Seahawks, and injuries hit them, and then they came out and they just kind of destroyed the Falcons. Honestly, it was a bit of a beatdown. They ended up winning 34-14. Kirk Cousins turned the ball over 3 times in the second half, which was amazing to see the defense stepping up and producing turnovers, because that was something that during the losing streak we were not doing. We were not producing any turnovers whatsoever. And in that second half, the Seahawks were really able to pull away because of those turnovers. One fumble, and then that ended up being a fumble return for a touchdown by Derek Hall. And then we had 2 interceptions on consecutive drives from Kirk Cousins, which ultimately led at the end of the game. We got to see Michael Penix come in. For all the Husky fans out there, Michael Penix's first snaps, I believe, in the NFL. Obviously garbage time, and he didn't really get to show much, but he completed a nice pass.
Lots of handoffs.
Honestly, just like, a lot of handoffs running the clock down, but it's still exciting to see Penix in the game, 1 for 1 for 14 yards. So, but the main story in this game was Kenneth Walker and DK Metcalf, who both just had an absolutely amazing games. DK ended up having only 4 catches, but for 99 yards and a touchdown, including a spectacular catch coming off a little bit of trickery on a pass from JSN. Ken Walker finished with 14 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown, with his longest rush being 20 yards. Also had 2 catches for 24 yards and a touchdown on a pretty unbelievable catch as well, where he just looked like a wide receiver. Gino put it right on the money. Ken Walker put his hands out, a little bit of an over-the-shoulder catch, and he ended up scoring his touchdown on that play in addition to his rushing touchdown. And I just love to see the Seahawks getting their skill players involved, because both of those players are so talented. DK, unfortunately, did end up leaving the game at the end of the game. We know now that he has a grade 1, I believe it's an MCL sprain. He's going to be out about a week to 3 weeks. That's what when I looked it up online, it said a week to 3 weeks.
I think he's officially put as week to week, but 1 to 3 weeks is probably safe to assume for this. I imagine that the Seahawks are probably going to be a little more conservative with this, because we've had already a few times where we brought a player back, first week of being healthy, and they've got right back to being injured. And it hasn't been the case. Byron Murphy, but you got like Chenna, obviously, brought him back first week. I imagine they're going to play it safe, especially with a player like DK in that regard.
If I was to guess, I'd guess he's not going to play this week against the Bills. He probably doesn't play against the Rams with the bye week the next week. So he'll end up missing 2 games, but have a full month to recover and come back after the bye is what I imagine will happen. If he can play against the Rams and he's actually healthy, that'd be fantastic. But for me, I'd honestly be perfectly fine saying, DK, just sit out the 2 weeks. I know he's not going to like it, as he's currently top 5 in the league in receiving yards, and he's having a truly pretty spectacular season, but we need him to be healthy through the remainder of the year if we want to get to the playoffs. So I would shut him down for 2 games and bring him back after the bye week. But in other injury news, hopefully we see Tariq Woolen back this week. I really think this defense could use him. However, the rookie played really well in his absence this week. I was really impressed from what I saw from him. Along with Gerald, I forgot his first name. Gerald, Division II rookie that we signed this last season. He makes his debut, and I thought he played fantastic. Besides one holding call that he had, the broadcast continued to highlight some of his blocks and how well he was playing. And I was really impressed with his ability to just step in and honestly just hold his own. And that was huge for us. Geno Smith leads the league in passing yards at this moment in time, which is pretty cool to see. What are your thoughts on the game and just the Seahawks in general?
Well, I can tell you one thing. I did not have very much faith in them to win this game, to be completely honest. And some people were talking to me, and it's the Falcons. What do you mean? We're going to beat the Falcons. This is Kirk Cousins. I can't believe you don't have faith in this team. And it's not that I was thinking like, oh, we're a bad team. We've lost 3 games in a row. We're fake. I just didn't see this week as being the bounce back week. I was kind of pinning it on the Rams game, or it's not the Rams game, excuse me, the Bills game, which is also kind of a crazy take, but I just thought bigger opponent, you step up to the challenge. You probably have some players back from injury. So I was pleasantly surprised. I missed the first quarter and a half. I was pleasantly surprised, though, to come home and see we were up 17-7 at the time, watched the rest of the game. Gino looked solid. Kenneth Walker looked solid. I'm not going to go down the list with every single player, but the whole team in its entirety looked great. Some of Kirk Cousins' turnovers were a little bit lucky, shall I say. Some overthrows, a couple of bobbled passes, but the defense was there. The defense made the catches, started to bring the ball back, so that's great to see. The rookie Pritchett played really well. That was great to see from him. And who did you say that we brought in? Was it Jaron Hall who we brought in? Or not Jaron Hall, excuse me. That's the quarterback. I had his name pulled up and then I lost it. But he played really well. I agree. I ended up having to look him
Michael
up because I was
Jarrell.
confused. Yeah, Michael Jarrell. Yeah, no, he played good. I was great to see how he played stepping in for that line.
Yeah, we drafted him in the 6th round.
From this past draft. Nice. Yeah, no, he played great. I was impressed. I had to check and look because I was like, I think we drafted him, but I don't remember if it was this year or the year before. But no, he played great. I was super happy to see the use of the tight ends, which last episode I talked about the Seahawks not doing that in the past very much. Noah Fant, 4 for 4, 69 yards. Love to see that. Love to see him being used effectively. Our other tight end got AJ Barner also had a reception. So that was great to see. Just kind of some uses of the tight ends, more than just blocking for the run game and for the O-line. So it was really just great to see the whole team pull together. Strong win. Everyone looked confident before and after. Mike was super happy about it. I loved hearing about his what he had talked about. Gino throwing that touchdown pass to DK. That was fun to hear that little section there after the post-game presser where he was like, yeah, you see Gino step up and you're like, oh shoot, he's gonna throw it. And then you see DK in the end zone and you get all excited. So that was great to hear from Coach Mike. See some excitement from him.
Yeah, and that play was a huge play in the game. At that point, the Seahawks had driven all the way down. It was 10-7, and they end up putting the ball, and the Falcons are getting the ball after half. Pretty much the last play of the half, Gino just delivers an absolute strike to DK Metcalf in the end zone, which is honestly a huge play to put us up by 10 at halftime, and really kind of set the tone for the second half. I teased this question at the beginning, but we're going to talk a little bit more about it now. So the question that we're going to discuss is are the Seahawks back, or were we just a victim of the my bad. I'm going to rephrase that.
Little tongue tie.
Is this Seahawks team the victim of bad luck, and should we still be hoping for a playoff berth for this team?
And this is a question from one of the listeners.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much for sending in questions. We had a lot of questions this week between like all 3 of our profiles, and then I also had some people who know me personally who were DMing me some questions and messages. So everyone stepped in huge. Each week we're going to try to get to as many questions as we can, but obviously we don't want to spend too much time answering every single question, but we'd love to get as many questions as we can. Yeah, you want to start on this question? You want me to go?
Yeah, so I thought that the Seahawks through the first 3 weeks, some people were really high. I was not that high on them because of the quality of opponent that we played, and I know we talked a little bit about this in the last episode. So then we had that 11-day stretch where we played 3 games, lost all 3 of them. However, especially in the Lions game, I thought there was a lot of stuff that was positive to take away from that game. Along with the 49ers game, I thought there were some positives there. The Giants game, just not a great game at all. That's one that you got to win. But I was really excited to watch this game because I thought it was going to say a lot about this exact question. And I think they played so well, and it answered this question pretty clearly for me. I think the Seahawks team was truly just a victim of some bad luck. And whether that be with injuries or with the schedule and just a mix of everything that was going into it. I think they still expect that I think that in that locker room, the expectation is that they still make the playoffs. And I think everybody on this team is still fully believes that in the fact that they can make the playoffs. Is it going to be helped a little bit by the fact that the NFC West is just garbage this year? Yes, it is going to help a little bit. But I think the expectation for this team is for them to make it into the playoffs. I don't think that this team is quite good enough to win a playoff game. But honestly, at this point, with all brand new coaches, coordinators, relatively young team, I think just to make the playoffs and to have that experience, and if you can win the NFC West to have a home playoff game, I think that would be a huge win for this team regardless of what ends up happening in the playoffs. So yes, I think the Seahawks team is just a victim of bad luck, and that we should still be kind of, I'm not going to say expecting a playoff berth, but I think that's what the expectation is in the locker room.
I definitely think that a playoff berth is for sure in sight for this team, and I agree with you on the fact that yes, this division is weak, but also I think with the even 3-4 more healthy players for that Niners game, I think you pull out a win there. Like, truly, I do. I think injuries were just super unlucky for us. I do not think that Niners game was completely out of reach, and if you win that game, you're 100% like super confident that you're in a really good in a spot right now, regardless of your record being 5-2. If you win that game and then go and beat the Falcons, you're also like, well, we just beat a team that we haven't beat in the last, that's like 7 games now, I think 6 or 7 games. So it's definitely not, this is definitely not luck on our side. We're not getting by on just everything falling our way. This team is talented. Coach Mike knows what he's doing. He's got a great defensive setup. And honestly, I think as much as this team wants to get to the playoffs, and as much as I think they have it in their sights and they know it's right there, I think this team is also okay with not making the playoffs. I'm not saying that they don't want to, or that it's not in their sights. That would be totally contradicting what I had just said. But I think this team knows in the long run, we're going to be great. We're going to work together. We're going to learn Coach Mike's system, and we're going to get stronger every year. And you got teams like the Niners, who in my opinion are kind of going downhill right now. You got a lot of players they got to pay coming up, including Brock Purdy, who's played incredible in his first few years, and you know he's going to want the big bucks. You just paid Brandon Ayuk. You got to pay Debo coming up. You got to pay Kittle. You got to pay Bosa. You got to pay Greenlaw. All of those contracts are coming up in the next 1 to 3 years. So they're going to have to see a couple of their star players leave. And the Rams, I don't know what to think about them. 1 year, they're the worst team in the division, and the next year, they're almost taking the division title. So I never count the Rams out. They're a tough team. We never play them very well, or almost never play them very well. The Cardinals are on the uphill right now, obviously, but I think the Cardinals, despite their 2-5 record, I think they're a lot better than their record says. Or excuse me, they're not 2-5. They won last night. They're 3-4, I think now.
Yeah.
So I think this Seahawks team is probably the strongest in the division, despite the 49ers loss, and I'm super excited to see where the team goes from here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do feel like they are going to hold them to themselves to the expectation of making the playoffs, but also from a fan perspective, this isn't in our contention window. Like, this season is not one that we came into the season looking at like this is a year that we could win the Super Bowl.
It's just not do or die.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of fans should remember that, because I saw some projections before the season started saying that we were going to get 4 wins, and we already got 4 wins. Some people were saying that we might have the number 1 pick in the draft, and I think that was really disrespectful, and I think the team took that disrespect. But I would agree in the fact that if they don't make the playoffs, it's not the end of the world. as much as I would love to see a playoff game and as much as I love playoff football, I would agree with the fact that it's not do or die this season. Again, eventually Gino's going to have to leave. He's getting older. He continues to play at a super high level, but I think that in order for this team to really be able to push for a Super Bowl, they're going to have to find a young up-and-coming quarterback, because as we've seen in the NFL, it's really hard to win with a quarterback who's on a legitimate salary. That's just the name of the game right now with how the NFL contracts are constructed and with the way salary caps are constructed, that if you have a quarterback that you're paying a fair bit of money, it's really hard to build a really good team around them. So, One more question before we kind of switch gears one more time. This is just kind of a bit of a fun question. I've been talking to a lot of my followers on Instagram a lot about this, and I've been asking them the question: what is currently worse, the NFC West and their struggles, or compared to the AL West and its struggles this past season in the MLB, both of which had teams that were projected to do really well, in the Astros and the Niners, obviously teams that we hate, but teams that were projected to be well and that are underachieving in the season. So I guess that's the question. What has been more disappointing to this point in the year, the NFC West or the AL West?
I feel like I'd have to go with the NFC West, mostly just because everyone expected, if we're going by what the nation expected, everyone expected the Niners to win easy, the Rams to be right behind them, and then the Seahawks and Cardinals to kind of battle out for the bottom, that third place spot. But some people also had the Cardinals going 9-8, taking that 7 seed, which is kind of crazy to think the NFC West having like 3 seeds going, especially positions going, teams going, especially at 9-8, and had the Seahawks going 7-10, 6-11, which again, adding to that disrespect you were talking about. So it's gonna be, it was, I think, almost a little bit of a letdown to see like, oh, the Niners don't look super solid. The Rams, who knows what they're doing over there. The Cardinals are kind of back and forth, and the Seahawks started out looking hot, and now they're looking not so hot. Obviously, I have more faith in this team than most of the nation does, most of the NFL does, but I think the NFC West is probably more of a little bit of a disappointment. The AL West, obviously, like, the Astros had a weird start, similar to, I know I'm pulling in another sport here, but similar to the Edmonton Oilers in the NHL. They started out terrible, bottom of the league, like right next to the San Jose Sharks, who, finished last by a mile and a half for almost half the season. And then they went on like a 19-game winning streak, completely turned it around, and the Astros did almost the exact same thing. So it was really tough for me to watch two teams that I hate do that in two different sports. But I think the Rangers were a little bit of a disappointment. The Mariners obviously really wanted to make the playoffs there, missed it by one game. But let's not put salt on the wound. What about you? What are your thoughts on that?
I think I agree. I think the NFC West has been, just because of like what you said, having made some projections had us taking 2 of the 3 wild card spots in the NFC. And right now, quite frankly, it's looking like we're going to get one team. Whoever wins the division is going to be going to the playoffs. And if you don't win the division, it's not looking like it's going to happen for you. With right now, you need to be 4-2, take the 7th seed. And the next closest NFC West team is 2 games back of that. So I think it's basically going to be a competition for the division. I still think the Niners are a very talented team. However, because of how many injuries they've had, I don't see a Houston's or Edmonton's size comeback in them because of just everything that continues. Their players are just dropping like flies right now. Ayuk is now out for the season. as of right now, Deebo Samuel is going to be out for an indefinite period of time. There's not anything that good going on in San Francisco right now. And so I think it's really just going to come down to who wins the division. You get to take the playoff spot, you get the home game, and you kind of go from there. Similar to what we've seen out of the NFC South for the last few years, where you kind of just are hanging on for the last, and you kind of get in at 9-8 as a division winner, and you have to play the number one wild card team. And I think that's going to be the NFC West this year. And so for that reason, I'm going to go with the NFC West as being the most underachieving team this year. So,
Yeah.
real times to switch over to the last team that is in season right now. The Sounders finished their season on a pretty disappointing note. This game had everything for the Sounders to play for, and in the first half, they looked like they wanted it. The
Solid
first half, we absolutely were running the timber off the field. Like, we were flying, we were playing well, we had good chances, we got the goal. Probably should have had 2 with the quality of chances that we had. A lot of just missed opportunities. And in the second half, the ref just took over, quite frankly. It's a derby match, so you kind of expect it. For those of you that don't know what a derby match is, it's basically just a rivalry game. In soccer, they call it a derby match. And throughout the entire world, there's derby matches that are played every single year, and refs just have to have the understanding that these games are going to be physical, these games are going to get chippy. Yes, you have to stay in control of the game, but normally refs allow for a little bit of an extra edge to be played with in games like this, and especially in the last game of the season when both teams are playing for something. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be, the fans are going to be super into it. It's going to be loud. It's going to be chaotic. But that's just kind of the name of the game. And the ref just did not understand that whatsoever. A lot of awful calls. A lot of advantage that should have been played for the Sounders that we didn't get. It was so bad that in the post game, I was reading some of the comments on the Sounders Instagram page, and there was Portland fans coming in and apologizing to us about the ref and how he ruined what could have been a great game. And I think when fans of two teams that hate each other are coming together over the ref, that shows a lot about the quality of the ref that we saw on Saturday night. So, not a great game from the ref whatsoever. However, the Sounders still should have won that game. We can make excuses about the ref. Did the ref make it significantly harder? Yes, but at the end of the day, the Sounders had 17 shots to Portland 7. The Sounders finished with a 1.06 expected goals, while the Timber had just a .06 expected goals. So they really should have they really should have not allowed the Timber to score. They did, and the Sounders should have probably put up 2 goals on the scoreboard. So it was disappointing. A lot was left on the field. A lot was left to be had. But ultimately, you have nothing left to do but turn your attention to the playoff run, because there is still a way that you can get back into CONCACAF Champions League next season, but you're going to have to win the MLS Cup to do so. And that's the goal at the beginning of the season. You want to put yourself in a position to play for CONCACAF Champions League, to play for the MLS Cup. And after a historic bad start to the Sounders season, they find themselves as the number 4 seed. And if you would have told me in mid-May that the Sounders were going to find a way to be the number 4 team in the West, I would have been more than happy with that result after the beginning of the season that we had. And so ultimately, they got the job done. They made it into the playoffs. They have home field advantage for this first round. And I think that's what we wanted to see. Really quick, I thought that Brian Schmetzer had a great quote after the game and to begin his post-game press conference. He said, "Full room here, thank you. Full stadium, so thanks to all the fans. I think everybody is frustrated. Everybody is super frustrated. This was as good of a chance as any to end the streak, certainly against a lively home crowd with Cascadia Cup on the line, and I'm super disappointed about not being able to bring that to our fans. You know what? You know what I can say? Game unfolded in a certain manner. I thought we were in control of the game, and things, just didn't end up on our favor. It's a loss, by the way. It's a loss, by the way. It is a complete loss. And I think that perfectly describes how many Sounders fans felt about the game. While they did end up tying, a tie wasn't much in that situation. That was a loss. It felt like a loss. And so at the end of the day, the Sounders, didn't get the job done. But turning just to the next thing, the Sounders have an opportunity to bounce back in the MLS playoff run and to just kind of wipe that out of their minds. They're going to be playing the Houston Dynamo, who this season they have one win and one draw. The win was 1-0 at home just a little bit ago. Well, they draw 2-2 on the road in Houston. Houston's coming off a pretty big win, 2-1 against the Galaxy. To get to this point, the Galaxy with the win would have clinched the number 1 spot in the West. Unfortunately, with their loss, LAFC clinched number 1 spot in the West. So that was a huge win for Houston. It's not going to be easy, but I'm pretty confident in our ability to beat Houston. They don't really have a quote-unquote star player. Their leading goal scorer this year had 6 goals in 34 appearances, which is not great.
No, that's not great.
Yeah, so they're kind of just a team that plays well together, but in the playoffs, you need guys to step up, and I think the Sounders have more stars. I think they should be able to handle it in 2 games, especially with that first game being at home. Real quick, the schedule is they'll play game 1 in Seattle on Monday, which MLS, get rid of Monday playoff games, please. Like 6 o'clock local time on a Monday night for a playoff game is just awful. Stick to Saturday and Sunday. I know they try and spread it out a little bit to try and get more people to watch each game, but the draw just isn't really there for playoff soccer right now in the United States. So please stick to Saturday and Sunday playoff games. That's a little rant, but game 2 will then be played on November 3rd in Houston at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. And then, if necessary, Game 3 will be back in Seattle on Sunday, November 10th at 4 o'clock. Like I said, I think the Sounders should be able to get this done. If we win this series, it's going to be tough. We're most likely going to be going against LAFC. I think LAFC is going to handle Vancouver or Portland. It's really difficult in the MLS to win the first round when you don't have home field advantage. The higher seed in the first round, because it's a 3-game set, wins almost every single time. And so, just a little bit of my predictions for the first round. I think LAFC is going to handle Vancouver, Portland. I have the Sounders over the Dynamo. I think Real Salt Lake takes care of Minnesota United. And I actually have an upset. I think Colorado Avalanche are going to get the upset against the Galaxy, who have just been playing flat for a while now.
Sorry to interrupt, is that the Rapids, not the Avalanche?
Yeah, Colorado Rapids, my bad. I'm watching the hockey game at the same time.
Yeah, Kraken are playing the Avalanche right now, so.
Yeah, so I have Colorado there. And then on the eastern side, Miami's going to destroy Montreal, the winner of Montreal and Atlanta. I have Charlotte over Orlando. I think Cincinnati destroys NYCFC, and Columbus takes care of Red Bull. That's really only 2 upsets, one being a 4-5, which isn't much of an upset with Charlotte and Orlando. And then my big pick, controversial pick, is the Rapids over the Galaxy. So those are my predictions for the first round. We'll see how those hold up. What are your thoughts on, if you have any, on the Sounders game at Portland and a potential look ahead to the series against the Dynamo?
Well, I think that definitely was more of a win for Portland and more of a loss for Seattle, obviously. Both teams are probably, I'm sure, disappointed with the outcome, but I know Portland would rather take a draw or a win over a loss. I didn't watch too much of the Sounders game, but I was super disappointed seeing the final score and just being like, oh man, like It had to be a draw. It had to be a draw with so much on the line. It was good to hear how disappointed the organization was and the team of just like they know that this was not okay and this was just a frustrating game. And that's good to see that the team is not taking this lightly. They know, which hopefully will help them carry that frustration and kind of that fury into the playoffs. In terms of the playoffs, is it a 3-game series is what it is?
Yeah, so the MLS does this weird thing where the first round is a best of 3, and then it's best of 1 all the way through the MLS Cup. So
That's interesting.
the first round is a home away, and then if necessary, it comes back for a home game for the last team. For the higher ranked seed, the last game.
Okay. Yeah, I think they can win in this first game. I don't know much about Houston. I don't know much about most MLS teams, to be honest. But I did actually, the one game, Sounders game that I watched this year was that 1-0 victory. And it happened to be against Houston. So I think they win the first round. I'm curious to see how they do moving forward in the next rounds, but I don't want to jump too far ahead. But I also don't want to spend. I also don't want to spend too much time. Yeah, I also just don't want to spend too much time talking about a team that I don't know too much about. But definitely excited for the playoffs and hoping for some really competitive, entertaining. That was what I was looking for. Competitive, entertaining games from the Sounders.
Yes, for sure. So now we're going to answer I picked 2 of my favorite listener questions that were submitted to answer here at the end. One of them being related to the Kraken. One of them just as kind of a bit of a fun question. So you guys can get to... Yeah, go ahead.
Before you dip in there, I have a little bit of a live update I've been meaning to give for a little while. Kraken are in the second period right now with 13:57 left. Colorado is up 1-0. Unfortunately, they have a third line forward who gets a shot through Montour's legs on a rush. Grubauer, in my opinion, was not positioned well for it, but it's hard to blame him considering the fact that it went through Montour's legs, which means Montour was accidentally screening Grubauer.
Yeah.
And it's off of a rush. It was a tough shot, but if you'll have to watch it to really know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who are watching the game and who will watch the replay, I think, in my opinion, Grubauer is too far over to the left too early. Montour is trying to force that shot to the left. So Gruby should move over there eventually. He should have stayed centered, but it's all right. 1-0 now. The boys are absolutely buzzing. They're up 14-8 in shots, and we have had constant nonstop pressure on the Avs so far. It looks like the Avs are about to go to the power play, though, as Ellie Tolvanen takes a penalty. Not sure what it is yet, but a little bit of a live update just on how they're doing so far. Tough so far, but offense is clicking, and defense looks good as well.
Yeah, staying on lines with the Kraken, the first question that we got was, how many points do you think the Kraken will end up with this season? So I think the Kraken are going to end up like the 94 to 98 range in points at the end of the season. Historically, that'll put you right on the edge of playoff contention. 98 points will pretty consistently get you in as a wild card team. I think the floor of this team is probably around 85 points. If all else fails with injury, I could see them. I think even at their worst, this team is still going to do better than last year. And that's why I have it at about the 85-point range. I could also see, because of the additions that we made in the offseason, I see a ceiling of about 104 points. The best season the Kraken ever had, they had 100 points. I think this team is better than that team was that season. Granted, we had a lot of stuff go our way that year to get to that 100-point mark. So that's why I say about 104 points. I think the talent is there, but it'll depend a lot on the development of the younger guys, specifically Maddie and Shane Wright, and if they can grow into their roles and really find themselves, get really good at what they're good at. I think we get about to that 104-point mark, but realistically, I think 94 to 98 is what I'm predicting.
Yeah, last season you finished 7th in the division with 82 points. Excuse me, not 82, with 81 points.
Yeah.
I think, as you said, if all else goes bad, I think you're finishing probably 80 around that range. That's like you're almost 500 at that point record wise. You're 34, 35 and 13 is last year's record. I imagine you're probably somewhere around that. If everything goes wrong, if the team just doesn't click, I think this is definitely a wild card team for sure. The current state of the division is interesting because the Oilers are not off to a good start, which I don't think that will stick. I think they're going to get back to it. The Golden Knights are off to a great start. I don't think that will stick. They are 2 injuries away from not having as much success. This team is very heavily carried by players like Mark Stone and Jack Eichel. And then obviously they lost Stevenson and Marchessault and a couple other players as well in the offseason. And everyone else on this team is doing well right now, but it's some of the players that they have that were called up or that they picked up in the offseason, we don't know how they do in the long run, or they have a history of not doing well in the long run. And I wish I had some names for you, but I don't. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how everything goes. The LA Kings, it's going to come down to goaltending for them. They've always been solid on offense and defense. Quentin Byfield is going to have an outstanding year. Love that kid. I don't see them taking the division, though, but they'll definitely make the playoffs this year. Hopefully they don't get matched against the Oilers again for the 4th year in a row. So I think this team definitely is a wild card team this year, in my opinion. Coming into the season, I had us on the bubble just missing. After what I've seen, though, as long as we don't have too many significant injuries, because you're going to have at least one, most likely, maybe 2. As long as we don't have too many significant injuries, I'd love to see this team finishing somewhere in the lower seeds, getting into the playoffs, and make some noise. I wish I could say it was a Stanley Cup year. Not sure if I'm feeling that yet. You got to give Shane Wright. You got to give Shane Wright a year in the NHL. You got to go out and get probably one more player. You got to get rid of Grubauer. No offense to Gruby, but you got to have a solid goaltender behind him. And unfortunately, Nicholas Coco is not quite ready to come up yet and play behind Joey. I have more to talk about him a little bit soon coming up, but that's kind of my thought process on points wise. I would say they're somewhere in that mid to high 90s.
Yeah. And so, second question, favorite professional team outside Seattle? For me, it's pretty easy. I've been a Warriors fan for a long time. Obviously, with no NBA team in Seattle growing up, I kind of just picked one, and I picked Golden State because they were always on TV. They were always on ESPN. It was really easy to root for them since I was able to watch them all the time, and I love Steph Curry. So, for me, it's the Warriors. How about you?
I didn't watch too much basketball at all, but I have family who are Lakers fans, so I always watch the Lakers. I watched the Lakers, and then last year, the Fruit Sports deal that the Kraken had dabbled with Portland, the Trailblazers, so I watched some of their games. I couldn't get into it. They were not good last year. I mean, they haven't been good for a little while, but they were like, as somebody who doesn't watch basketball and really never has, they were not fun to watch, like, at all. So I didn't watch very many of their games, but I've always watched the Lakers just because of family that likes the Lakers. But it's who I would tune into. I used to like the Warriors growing up too, but I never really watched basketball.
Going over to our minor league players standout. For this week, we're kind of going to do a team shout out. I'm going to shout out the Tacoma Defiance. For those of you that don't know, the Tacoma Defiance are basically Sounders 2. A lot of players, if the Sounders ever need someone, they'll be calling up players from the Defiance. In some of the tournaments, some of these players will get minutes as we don't play our starters. But they had a pretty solid season. Funnily enough, they actually finished 4th also in the Western Conference in the MLS Pro Next League. Sounders also finishing 4th. They won their first playoff game 4-0 at Starfire, and they're going to move on to the Western Conference semifinals, where they have to face the number 1 overall seed in North Texas FC. They'll play that in Texas this upcoming Saturday, the 26th. So, looking forward to that game. I always love following the Tacoma Defiance just because of how many players you will see throughout the season playing with the Sounders. And a lot of young guys will also be playing there. So congrats on a great season for the Defiance, and hopefully they can get the job done in Texas on Saturday.
Yeah, that's great to hear about them. I didn't actually know that they existed until like last year. Talking to a friend who's a Sounders fan, he's like, "Oh yeah, the Tacoma Defiance. I kind of want to go see a game." And I was like, "Who is Defiant? Is that?" I think I asked if it was lacrosse or something. He was like, "Dude, come on." But yeah, I just discovered that they exist just last year. For me, my shout out this week, as you had said, is also a team. I'm going to shout out really two teams, but I'm going to shout out the Coachella Valley Firebirds as my first team. Picked up their first win the other day. Good win against the San Diego Gulls. Nicholas Coco started his first game, which is great to see. Love to see him in net. He had a clean, solid first and second period, allowing only one goal in the first two periods. And then the third period, all hell broke loose. And the Gulls started to make a comeback. Got up to a 5-4 score before the Firebirds could just end the game, finish it off there, and hold it onto a 1-goal lead. A lot of Firebirds fans were frustrated with the Coco. I feel like, though, when you have all momentum going against you, and when you're a young goaltender like him, and this is his first time playing in an American Hockey League of any kind, sometimes, stuff happens, the game gets crazy, and the whole team, you just saw the whole team just confused, lost, trying to figure out what's going on. That Gulls team scored like 3 goals in 5 minutes. There was like 7 minutes left, and the Firebirds were up 5-2, and I was like, yeah, we're going to win this. We're going to put in an empty net if they pull the goalie, and that's going to be it. And I was doing some notes actually for this, and I kept looking at a podcast and look over at my phone. Uh-oh, they let in a goal. No worries. Oh no, they put another one and another one. But Coco, really good, solid start for him. At least he had the good start. Love to see him have a good finish next game. Cale Fleury, the transaction master himself, nets a hat trick. So really great to see him just put in the effort, especially since he's coming to Seattle. He was called up yesterday. Called up to Seattle for his first transaction of the year. We'll see how many more are to come. But really good first win for the Firebirds. It was great to see. Super excited to see them continue to hopefully put in some great effort. Live update. Jared McCann scores a goal right in front of the net. He goes forehand backhand on Annanen and puts it in. Game tied 1-1. Beautiful goal. Beautiful fighting in front of the net. We did not have that last year, and we've had it quite a bit this year. So they fight for a puck in front of the net and get it. Anyway, just to finish up, I'm rambling a little about the Firebirds. Edward Chalet puts in his first goal as a Firebird. We drafted him 2 years ago, and he quickly went up to the AHL, struggled at the NHL preseason level, struggled in his first 2 games as a Firebird. He didn't play very much of his first game. His minutes were reduced because he just wasn't performing well, was making a lot of mistakes. But he's got 1 goal and 2 assists on the season for 3 points. Jagger Furcus puts in 2 assists since we last talked about him. So Firebirds starting to get things going, hoping for a good win coming up in a few days to go back to 500 and get off that 1-2 record. And just a quick shout out to the Kansas City Mavericks. They got their first win of the season, or second win of the season, first and second win with a 5-3 victory, and then a 5-4 victory in back-to-back games. Victor Ostman, one of our prospect goalies, had the 5-3 victory. Kind of a bumpy game for him. They kind of went back and forth on goals until the Mavericks just went ahead. Ostman definitely needs some more time to get some more reps in. Coco outperformed him in the rookie tourney, which is why he's in Coachella rather than Ostman. And then Jack LaFontaine, otherwise known as Laffy, like the fans like to call him. He also had a very similar game to the Firebirds where they were up 4-0. going into the second, close in the closing minutes of the second, only to end up winning 5-4. They got a late goal with less than a minute left, or just over a minute left when they were tied 4-4, and they get a 5-4 victory to advance to 2-0. Curious to see how that goalie tandem does. The Mavericks had they started three goalies that kind of shared game time, and those three goalies all finished like top 10 in the league for goaltending. So curious to see how Osman and LaFontaine do together in Kansas City.
Solid. Just a quick wrap around before we wrap this episode up, looking at the other teams in the area. UW football, they had a bye this weekend. For some reason, I could not tell you why, ESPN Game Day is going to be covering, doing their show for the UW versus Indiana game this upcoming weekend. Indiana is number 13 in the country. They're undefeated, 7-0 for the first time in a while, which is probably why Game Day is there, but there is, like I'm going to say a little bit later, there is a lot of better games that they could have chose. But either way, exciting for UW fans for Game Day to be at their game, even if it's not in Seattle. Looking forward to watching that one on Saturday. WSU continues to be on a roll as they beat Hawaii 42-10. Their only loss is still to currently number 17 Boise State, who is a potential college football playoff team. They are currently the next team in. They are ranked 26th in the AP poll, just barely missing out to Vanderbilt. In my opinion, they probably should be ranked 25, and them and Vandy should be switched, but SEC bias. The Reign beat the last place Houston Dash 2-1. They ended a 5-game losing streak, and in those 5 games that they had lost, they scored 0 goals. So it's nice to see them get 2 goals in this game to win 2-1.
Were they home?
That was against a Houston team who is in last place, and this win for the Reign actually will secure them not last place. They're going to finish up their season on Saturday in Orlando. Quick live update for the Kraken. It's now 2-1. The Avalanche just scored a goal with about 4:50 left in the period. I didn't catch who scored that, but unlucky for the Kraken there. Oh, Makar. Yep.
Makar puts a shot in. He takes one shot. It goes off of one of the defenders. He was turned around, so I couldn't see his number. One of the Kraken defenders, and it gets right back on his stick. And actually no, it was Makar. It must have been tipped because Joel. I don't know how to pronounce that last name, and I don't want to butcher it. The Avalanche have a player that has 2 goals tonight. He is that third line forward. He must be playing second or first line minutes tonight since he's on the ice with McKinnon and Makar. He nets another goal. It must have been a tip because Makar shot it from well far out. It looked like it went 5-hole on Grubauer, but it must have been redirected. I'll take a look at that goal, and before the episode's over, I can give a brief little rundown on it. But let's continue on as we'll start closing it out here pretty soon.
So Yankees-Dodgers World Series starts on Friday in LA. I've seen a lot of people online unhappy about this, and rightfully so. I mean, I don't love the Yankees or the Dodgers. In fact, I don't really like either team. However, getting what, in my opinion, is the best team from each side of the bracket in the World Series is everything you could have asked for. To see players like Ohtani, Judge, Soto, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Will Smith, Max Muncy, all of these guys in the World Series. It's going to be absolutely a star-studded World Series. And having the 2 biggest markets, arguably in baseball, with LA and New York, it's going to be pretty awesome. In other sports news, the NBA started tonight with the Celtics kind of destroying the Knicks as they look to defend their championship from last year. And then starting here in a few minutes, the Lakers will be opening their season against the T-Wolves. And what is, in my opinion, one of the best college football slates we are going to see this weekend. Friday, number 17 Boise State versus 6-1 UNLV, which is a potential Mountain West championship game preview. We're going to see number 12 Notre Dame at number 24 Navy. Number 20, Illinois. At number 1, Oregon. Number 22, Missouri. At 15, Bama. Number 5, Texas. At number 25, Vandy. Number 8, LSU. At number 14, A&M. And number 22, SMU. At 6-1, Duke. So a lot of games that are going to be super exciting to watch over the weekend. If you have any time on Saturday, make sure you tune into those because it is going to be a good show. Anything else you want to cover here before we close out this episode?
Is there no BYU game?
BYU's playing, but it's not that big of a game. We're going to be on the road against a 500 team, so hopefully we can get the job done.
Keep going, keep that undefeated streak going. They've been fun to watch and really a surprise this year. So I've enjoyed keeping an eye on that, as well as being a Huskies fan. I've enjoyed being able to watch some good college football aside from whatever the Huskies are doing, which it was to be expected. So I'm not too disappointed. I think just lastly from me, all I really have is just that final goal in Grubauer. It was redirected, goes 5-hole. He should have stayed down. He got up because he was sure the shot was wide of the net, and he was going to try to reach out to make a save. I wish goalies would just let those shots go by, especially Gru. He has a tendency to try to reach out for pucks that are going nowhere near the net and getting out of position. But anyway, he stands up, puck gets redirected, 5-hole, goes in. Unfortunate goal. The Avs are turning up the heat, kind of like I said that they would earlier. I was hoping they wouldn't, but this Avalanche team plays well as the game goes on. I'm just hoping the Kraken can continue to put pressure like they've been doing this entire game. But yeah, I think that's all from me. Any final thoughts from you?
No, just thanks everybody for listening. If you have any specific questions you'd like answered, leave it in a comment down below on Spotify or on YouTube. If you're new to the podcast, make sure you follow us at Seattle Sports Scene on Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you've listened before, we love that you're here again, and check back next Friday for another episode. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Make sure you go check out some of the games in Seattle with all 3 teams playing at home, Sounders, Seahawks, and the Kraken being home on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And until then, we will see you next week for another episode on Friday.
See you guys. Thank you so much. Go Seattle sports teams.